So just now, let me introduce you. Jack is going to present another initiative of the Department of Humanitarian Assistance and Civil Protection of the EU, which is developed in another part of the world. So Jack, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Justin. How a little investment can make a big difference. I think this question would interest a lot of you, if not all of you, especially when we talk about disaster risk reduction and including climate change adaptation and any development activities. And I think that is for one obvious reason that small investments or little investments resulting to great impacts in disaster risk reduction means that our programs are becoming better. They're becoming cost-effective. And when I say cost-effective, I'm not just talking about the investments, the money, the resources, the efforts that we spend. I'm talking about the lots of people that we could save, or the people who could protect themselves. So it means that with little investments resulting to big differences could mean more communities can be more resilient. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jay Kadag. I come from the Philippines. And my presentation is about a project that proved to be successful in making little investment or providing little investments and having great impacts in making our urban poor communities in the Philippines, particularly in Metro Manila, more resilient. This project is funded by, it's called Moving Urban Poor Communities Towards Resilience, or MOVE-UP, and is funded by European Union Humanitarian Aid and implemented by a consortium of organizations, Action Against Hunger, Plan International, CARE, and the Court. For 5 seconds, I would like you to think or to look at this photo and think about resilience. Or what does it mean to be resilient in this context, in this place? Thank you for your cooperation. I think in that 5 seconds, I'm sure you have a lot of insights, a lot of thoughts in your minds now. But this area is an urban poor community in Valenzuela City, in Metro Manila. It's it's located north of Metro Manila, the capital city or the capital region. This area is not an area recently affected by disaster. This is everyday life in this urban poor community. So you have this pile of garbage that tells us that solid waste management is not working. The stagnant water, it's because of poor drainage system. But if you thought that this is a scenario showing an aftermath of a disaster, you're not entirely mistaken, because really, in a fragile context like this, there is I would say, a very thin line separating an everyday life or an everyday crisis and a disaster situation. So it's a great challenge. Oops. The mouse presenter is not working. Sorry. Oh. So it's a great challenge for this project to aim to promote resilience in this context, because now we're talking not just about resilience in facing hazards and disasters, but also resilience or capacity to face everyday life or everyday problems. And I think we cannot avoid that if we're talking about resilience, because these everyday problems are the same factors that make people vulnerable. So now we're dealing with resilience in the face of disasters and resilience or the capacity to deal with everyday problems. Allow me to provide you some details about this project. So this is it is a total funding of €1 million, and a large portion of it is funded by ECHO project. And this funding is allotted for capacity building of at least 12 communities in 12 urban poor communities in Metro Manila, particularly in Valenzuela, Malabon, Quezon City. These are the major cities in Metro Manila. A big percentage of these cities are residential areas, and there we find some of the urban poor areas. Around 30,000 individuals are expected to directly benefit from this project. It started in February 2016, and it's anticipated or expected to end in August 2017. So we are now midway on the project. The principal objective of this project is to contribute to institutionalizing urban resilience and disaster preparedness mechanisms for urban poor in Metro Manila, Philippines. And it has, it's difficult. It has 3 components, and I'll talk about these components one by one. The first one is improve alternative temporary shelter solutions. The purpose of this component is to ensure that people have alternative shelters in times of crisis. You know, in urban poor communities, in times of crisis, there are a lot of evacuees, and designated evacuation centers like schools, churches, public institutions are not just enough to accommodate these evacuees or urban poor. So they just decide to stay at home, and I think that's a rational decision, but that's also dangerous. So the purpose of this, sorry. So the purpose of this ATS solutions, or alternative temporary shelter solution, is to provide this safe, robust, and scalable, also gender-sensitive, and I would say socially inclusive shelter solutions that can be used by evacuees in times of crisis. And this can be, there is a wide range of, now I wanted to show you that photo. Can you go back? I wanted to show you this photo. What you see in this photo are local people working with the members of the NGOs, and they're trying to identify the safe locations for their alternatives temporary shelter solutions. And this is complemented by the skills and resources by outside actors like professional and student architects who are working as volunteers in this project to identify a wide range of alternative temporary solutions design. I'm sorry, this is not just working. Okay. So this wide range of solutions could include a quasi-temporary shelter design, or a mobile tent. This one, for example, is has a fiberglass mainframe with the heavy-duty wheels that can be used by families to move their children and their properties, important properties. And when they find the safe locations, they could set up that mobile tent in that safe place. This alternative temporary shelter solution aims to make sure that people are safe during and after disasters. But we know that this is temporary, short-term solution. And as I said in the beginning, if we really want to address the underlying causes of the vulnerabilities of these people, particularly when we talk about livelihood issues, we have to have some strategies or programs that address these particular issues. So this project is invested on several alternative strategies to strengthen the livelihoods of the urban poor communities. These include community savings group, risk transfer or microinsurance, and some alternative livelihood options. And so what you see in this photo is a group of women collecting a daily contribution of their members in the community. So they gather every week to collect these contributions, and these contributions can be used to can be accessed and used by the members of that women's organization as capital for their livelihood activities or alternative livelihood activities. And that gathering is also an opportunity to talk about other matters, or, for example, disaster preparedness. And I think that's a perfect opportunity, you know, to link this everyday problem or everyday crisis and disasters. So, and there's really no need for us to explain that relationship to them. The purpose of those multiple strategies for livelihood is to ensure that we provide choices for the urban poor people. Urban poor is composed of men, women, LGBT, workers. We could think of many categories, but each of these sectors is in different situations, and they could have different needs. And that is just to make sure that they have a choice when we talk about livelihood options. Those two components to make sure that they are sustainable, to make sure that they will have long-term impacts. They need to be institutionalized. And so one of the components of this project is really to encourage the local government units, the partner organizations to institutionalize these policies. So what I want to show you in that photo is our commitment to work with the government, sign memorandum of agreements, just to make sure that they continue with the project. We have some lessons in this project, and these lessons are not really new. But having learned this again, make us more committed to pursuing these lessons. One, disaster risk reduction must be participatory. Invest on people, invest on the resources that they could share. And you will not be disappointed. They have a lot of endogenous resources that they could share in this project. I think that's the big difference. Strengthen people's livelihood, invest on people's livelihood, and we are also investing or making difference when we talk about vulnerability reduction. Effective implementation of the DRRM law require political will, encourage or create political will. What we learned in this project is that if a signature of a local chief executive could mean on a legislation on disaster risk reduction could mean saving thousands of lives of people. We miss that opportunity, and it could mean losing those lives of people. The fourth one is promote partnership with different actors. We should always encourage that collaboration, invest on partnership. We could complement our resources, our skills. And the final slide of this presentation is for our ways forward. We want to build on those lessons and scale up models on ATS and resilient livelihoods, deal with that everyday problem and that disaster situation at the same time. Lobby and institutionalize policies just to make sure that governments replicate these creative strategies. Work with government, private sector, and donors for further investments. Institutionalizing promising practices into knowledge. Okay, sorry, just the last slide. We are satisfied with what this project have achieved in the last year, but the effectiveness of efforts for DRR and resilience is challenged by larger socioeconomic issues that make people vulnerable. We understand that there are other issues that are entirely dependent or independent of hazards, like poverty, which force people to live in hazard-prone areas, and there they are subjected to different forms of marginalization, discriminations, and if we don't solve these problems, then DRR would be bottomless pits. Thank you very much.